Just watched a video done by one of my favorite people on YouTube, Mr. Repzion, or he's better known as Daniel Sulzbach. Remember the video I posted about yesterday or the day before, I forget when, about how political correctness is ruining YouTube? Well, even though I think political correctness is ruining YouTube, and rightfully so it is, I do think, though, people should still be mindful of their words or of the context of what they're saying, and that's exactly what he addresses in this video that's in the description box below. He addresses, look, there's racism still, there's sexism still, these issues are alive and well, but just because someone disagrees with you on something, it does not mean you are a racist, it doesn't mean that you're a sexist, it doesn't mean that you're transphobic and so forth. But the one thing I don't get is, coming from, and the one thing I don't get is, if you identify yourself as pansexual, gay, lesbian, bi, transgender, and whatever gender or sexualities are out there. So, since I identify as pansexual, I have the right to talk about issues that affect people who are pansexual, people who are gay, and so forth. But Mr. Repzion is straight, so apparently he has no right to talk about it. That's bullshit. And I'll tell you why that's bullshit. Because it's called a straight gay ally. Yeah, I was one when I was straight. Do you know what a straight gay ally is? For some of you who may not know, is someone whose sexual orientation is straight, but they sympathize with the LGBTQ community, or people who have a different sexual orientation than straight, and they not only sympathize with that group, but they understand what bullying is like in some way, because they've been bullied themselves to quite some degree. And that's a straight gay ally, someone who knows what it is to be made fun of because they're different. And I don't see why he should be restricted on places to talk about these issues, because at this point you have older Americans who, like your grandmothers and your grandfathers, and if you're lucky, your great-grandparents, who aren't LGBTQ, pansexual, or who aren't anything like that, but they are straight, but they lived long enough. They lived long enough to know that bigotry, prejudice hurts people. And they know that they can talk about these issues and voice their support for the LGBTQ community, or any community that doesn't identify as straight. And people are allowed to voice their opinions on it. But I do want to point out, though, when it comes to jokes, though, because I consider myself a jack of all trades and a little bit of everything, especially when it comes to comedy. When it comes to comedy, when it comes to jokes, like I said, we've become too politically correct in America. You can't even make a joke using stereotypes about people, And let me clear what I mean by stereotypes. Stereotypes that make absolutely no sense whatsoever, and they were originally invented to hurt a group of people, but you have to understand, if you see all these stereotypes and you support and you stand against racism and you stand against sexism and you stand against bigotry and you stand against homophobia, if you stand against all these things, you should make jokes about some of these stereotypes, because you take that stereotype which is meant to be harmful and you turn it around and you make it into a joke as what it rightfully should be. Like, for example, and this is a complete joke altogether. When I think of black people, I think of Kentucky Fried Chicken. See what I did there? I took the stereotype that all black people love fried chicken, and I turned it around and said, this makes no sense whatsoever. And I made fun of it. And that's exactly what people should do in this day and age. They should be able to make a joke by using the stereotypes that make absolutely no sense whatsoever and turn it around on the stereotype, and it isn't harmful anymore. Here's another one. When I go to the bank, I swear the bank teller is going to be a cheap Jew. Makes no sense, right? Because if you think about it, what has been the stereotype of Jewish people for a long time? That all...
Hi, I'm thinking... Look at me.
Stop.
I think it's perfect.
Sorry for that. But like I was saying, the stereotype for Jewish people for a long time has always been that all Jewish people are cheap. So you take the... So you take that whole stereotype that all Jewish people are cheap, and then you turn it around and you make fun of it. And you make fun of it. One more that I could think of. I can't take credit for this one because Don Rickles had said this in the past. And if you don't know Don Rickles' comedy, if you're easily offended by words or phrases, you shouldn't watch Don Rickles' comedy, because Don Rickles, first of all, is not a racist, he is not a bigot, he is not homophobic. He's actually a non-prejudiced man, he's a non-racist man, and he loves everybody he meets, regardless of their race, what they identify sexual orientation-wise, what they identify gender-wise. He loves them because they are a nice person. That's all he cares about, is if you're a nice person. So at a comic relief show back in 1980-something, he sees a Japanese man in the audience, and what does he brilliantly do? The stereotype that's in his head at that moment is all Japanese people look like the Japanese people who tortured Vietnam War veterans. So he has the stereotype in his head, and he goes to the guy, hey, are you a Jap? Don't kid me, you're a Jap. I spent 3 years in the jungle looking for your uncle. That's how you make a joke. And that within this day and age, that's how you make a joke. You take these stereotypes that make no sense whatsoever, and you turn them around, and you take their power of being offensive away, and you turn it back at the people who think that stereotype is true. And with this day and age, with political correctness, You can't make a joke without being called a racist, without being called a bigot. But you know what? Screw people who think that you are a racist. Screw people who think you are sexist for making a joke, but you're taking that stereotype and turning it back at the people who think it's true. That's all you're doing. And if I get chastised for those 3 jokes that I made or voiced, you know what? I don't care, because I took stereotypes that made no sense and I turned it back at the people who think they're true. See you guys.